In our headlines on this Thursday afternoon, August 1st, here in South Korea. Korea's male fencers give the country its sixth gold medal by winning the team event against Hungary on Wednesday. And on the trade front, Korea's exports rise almost 14% on year in July as global demand for chips remains strong. Meanwhile, over in the Middle East, the risks are rising of an all-out regional war amid Israeli strikes in Beirut and Tehran. We tell you why. We begin over in Paris, where Korean fencers won their third Olympic medal in the men's team event. Our Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
The goal of winning 5 gold medals in Paris has now been surpassed. The South Korean men's sabre fencing team on Wednesday continued its dominance by winning its third straight Olympic gold. The team ranked number 1 in the world of Park Sang-won, Koo Bong-gil, Oh Sang-wook, and Do Kyung-dong defeated Hungary 45-41 to place themselves at the top of the podium. 34-year-old Koo has been on all 3 gold medal winning teams, while Park and Do are competing in their first Olympic Games. Oh, who also won the men's individual sabre gold on Saturday, became the first South Korean fencer to win 2 gold medals at a single Olympic Games. Meanwhile, South Korea has secured at least a silver medal finish in the badminton mixed doubles after an all-South Korean semifinal matchup has been set. Seo Seung-jae and Chae Yu-jung advanced to the semifinals after defeating the mixed duo from Hong Kong, while Kim Won-ho and Chung Na-eun also cruised through to the semis after defeating their opponents from Malaysia. This means that South Korea will be able to finish with at least a silver medal and win its first mixed doubles medal since Lee Yong-dae and Lee Hyo-jung at the 2008 Beijing Summer Games. In the women's singles, world number 1 An Se-young cruised through to the quarterfinals after beating Chi Shu-fei of France in straight sets 2-0 in her final Group A match. An has battled through some injuries over the past year, but is now the favorite to win gold. With South Korea adding a gold medal on Wednesday, they're now in 6th place in the overall medal standings, with a total of 6 gold, 3 silver, and 3 bronze medals. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Korea's exports expanded almost 14% on year in July as global demand for semiconductors remained robust. Our Park Gun-woo reports.
South Korea's exports rose for the 10th consecutive month in July. According to the Trade Ministry's data released on Thursday, the value of exports rose by nearly 14% on year last month, reaching around $57.5 billion. That's the second largest amount for any July so far. 11 out of the 15 major exporting items, including chips, petroleum products, and machinery, have all seen increases over spanning several months, including July. The export value for semiconductors, one of the country's largest shipping items, exceeded $11 billion last month, up by more than 50% on year. That's the 4th consecutive on-year increase of more than 50% since April, and the 9th straight month of export jumps. Automobile exports dropped by around 9% compared to the previous year, due to the car industry's summer vacation seasons, which started earlier than last year at the end of July. By destination, 8 out of the 9 major shipping regions, including China, the US, and ASEAN, saw jumps in exports. Shipments to China recorded an on-year increase of nearly 15% last month at over $11 billion, marking the largest amount in 21 months, mainly due to increases in intermediate goods like semiconductors, as the IT market has been recovering recently. That's also the 5th straight month that the country has exceeded the $10 billion mark for exports to the region. Exports to the US saw an all-time record high for any July, reaching $10.2 billion, up 9.3% on year. Imports in July came to around $53.8 billion, up 10.5% on year. That resulted in a trade surplus of more than $3.6 billion, making it the 14th consecutive monthly surplus recorded since June last year. And the accumulative surplus amount for this year until July reached its highest since 2018 at $26.7 billion. With robust trading last month, The Trade Ministry said it would utilize all possible resources, including financial support, in order to attain the country's goal of recording its greatest trading performance ever this year. 박건우, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, as widely anticipated, the U.S. Federal Reserve has announced intentions to hold its key interest rate steady for the 8th session in a row. Our Yoon-jin covers this latest intention and its broader implications for Korea.
Ending a two-day policy meeting, the U.S. Central Bank's Federal Open Market Committee kept interest rates in the 5.25 to 5.5% range. In a press conference on Wednesday, U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said that the economy is moving closer to an appropriate point for a rate cut, which would be where the balance of risks are consistent with rising confidence on inflation, as well as maintaining a solid labor market. But he said the Fed has decided the economy was not at that point just yet. However, Powell also strongly suggested that if inflation continues to come into line with the central bank's 2% target, as it slowly has been, then a rate cut could be possible as early as the Fed's next meeting in September. He also reiterated that other factors like the political calendar would not play part in either near-term monetary policy deliberations or the central bank's longer-run forecasting work. Meanwhile, a South Korean professor of business economics cautioned that the rate cut in September was only suggested and is not certain. And even then, rate cuts are not expected to be dramatic as inflation isn't slowing down enough right now.
We have to remember that, inflation, the so-called personal consumption expenditure, price index, which is the core kind of target of a Federal Reserve, that is still, 2.6%, way above 2.0. And it doesn't coming down. So we have to remember that inflation has been coming down very rapidly from over 5% to 2.6% now. But the pace of downfall in inflation is very slow.
At a macroeconomic meeting on Thursday to assess the Fed's rate setting, South Korean Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok emphasized that uncertainties linger over when and how much the Fed would cut interest rate cuts, and added that the South Korean government would strengthen monitoring of the global financial market and devise contingency plans to better respond to uncertainties regarding interest rates in the United States and other nations. The Fed's latest freeze keeps the gap between the key rates of South Korea and the U.S. at up to 2 percentage points. Yoon-jin, Arirang News.
Staying in the U.S., new chip restrictions by Washington against Beijing may ban global chip makers, including Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron, from selling high-bandwidth memory to Chinese companies. Now, this is according to a recent report by Bloomberg citing anonymous sources, who added a final decision had yet to be made and that the restrictions would target chips crucial for running complex AI programs, as well as the equipment needed to make these chips. At present, the 3 chip makers mentioned earlier dominate the global HBM market. On a more concerning note, the risks of an all-out regional war are rapidly rising in the Middle East amid alleged assassinations of senior Hamas members, including in Iran by Israel. Our Son Heung-min has details.
The Iranian Supreme Leader has ordered a retaliation attack in Israel for the killing of a top Hamas leader in Iran's capital, Tehran. The New York Times reported on Wednesday that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei vowed revenge during an emergency national security meeting. It added that Khamenei, who's also the country's highest military commander, instructed that a defense scenario be prepared in case Israel or the U.S. attacks Iran. Ismail Haniyeh, the political chief of Hamas, was in Tehran attending the inauguration of Iran's new president. After Haniyeh's assassination on Wednesday, Khamenei stated that our guest has been martyred and that it is Iran's duty to exact a blood price. The New York Times reported that Iran is also considering simultaneous attacks from Yemen, Syria, and Iraq to maximize the impact of the retaliation. The Iranian Revolutionary Guards issued an unusual 2 statements on the same matter, condemning the assassination in the strongest words. Iran's allies and proxy groups against Israel also denounced the assassination. Ma stated that it will not stand by and watch what it called Israel's cowardly actions, while Yemen's Houthi rebels said the heinous assassination is a terrorist crime. Hezbollah also declared that the resistance of anti-Israel alliances would become even stronger. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, the U.S. White House stated it is taking special care to prevent escalation, denying that a larger conflict is imminent. The U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump have also not issued any statements on the situation so far. Son Heung-min, Arirang News.
At the Parliament on this Thursday afternoon, lawmakers are reviewing the appointments of 2 new Supreme Court justices. Also today, the main opposition Democratic Party of Korea plans to pass an impeachment motion against newly appointed Korea Communications Commission Chair Lee Jin-suk. The opposition party is also pushing 2 additional bills, one proposing a 250,000 won economic relief payment for all South Koreans, and another seeking to restrict damage lawsuits against striking workers. The ruling People Power Party, for its part, has pledged to protest the opposition-led initiatives. Authorities raided the headquarters of e-commerce platforms TMON and WeMakePrice on this Thursday as part of investigations into delayed payments to merchants. The raid also included the home of Koo Young-bae, the owner of Singapore-based Q10, the parent company of the 2 platforms. This latest event follows the filing of court receivership by TMON and WeMakePrice earlier this week. Government officials here believe the 2 platforms have amassed some 210 billion won, roughly $153 million worth of unpaid transactions. Accordingly, CEO Koo has been charged with embezzlement and fraud. TMON and WeMakePrice, for their part, are accused of continuing transactions despite being aware of the broader liquidity crisis. In other news, Korea's junior doctors are digging in their heels. Few have applied for new training posts at hospitals in a prolonged show of fierce opposition to government plans to expand medical school seats. Our Shin Ha-young reports.
Recruitment for trainee doctors at 126 hospitals nationwide ended on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Since Monday last week, hospitals have been recruiting for 7,645 trainee doctor positions for programs starting in September. Although the government offered disciplinary exemptions for returning junior doctors, very few have applied. These included an exemption from the rule prohibiting residents who resign during their training period from returning to the same position within a year. However, the medical community has largely ignored the recruitment efforts, with some medical professors planning to boycott training programs for junior doctors and calling for the government to scrap its medical reform plan before any negotiations. Health Minister Cho Kyung said on Tuesday that the government is aware of the low application numbers, but reiterated that no additional measures would be taken to encourage returns. The number of applicants to the country's 5 major training hospitals is very low. Some have had no applicants at all, while others, such as Seoul National University Hospital and Samsung Medical Center, had only a few ahead of the deadline. Before the recruitment ended, an official from one of the hospitals said that it was uncertain if the number would even exceed single digits. Amid this situation, resident doctors who have not returned are seeking jobs at private clinics, resulting in a decrease in salaries as more people compete for limited positions. Meanwhile, the Korean Medical Association announced on Wednesday that it has formed a task force to help non-returning resident doctors who are struggling to find jobs. It will connect these residents with private clinics and create a standard contract after determining a salary range that both residents and private clinics can agree on. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
On the football field here in Korea, Team K-League lost to Tottenham Hotspur by 4-3 in the first match of the 2024 Kupang Play Series at the Seoul World Cup Stadium back on Wednesday. The English team won thanks to 2 goals from its captain, Son Heung-min. Team K-League Stanislav Ilyushenko, who plays for FC Seoul, also scored twice to help his team respond in the second half. Despite the sweltering summer heat, some 63,000 football fans gathered at the stadium for the showdown. Tottenham Hotspur's second match against Bayern Munich takes place here on Saturday, that is August 3rd. Researchers here have come up with a new strategy aimed at better integrating solar energy into urban landscapes. Our Cha Yun-kyung explains.
Existing solar modules have various cells in one frame, which produce electric power. They have a stacked structure that encompasses cells covered by films made of expensive tempered glass and plastics. However, if a solar module is subject to partial shading, its efficiency is decreased and there is a potential fire risk. This is a reason why solar panels are erected in secluded open spaces, not in an urban environment where there is the potential for shading. In response to this, the research team developed a new technology that can form the solar panel modules into various configurations. The key to this technology is reversing the production method for solar panels that has been around for 40 years. The new modules can be bent by coating each panel with silicon, not the existing glass. Thanks to this, solar panel modules can be attached to the various shapes of downtown buildings. Electrical circuits have also been changed from the previous in-series format to a combination of connections in series and parallel. Where there is a shaded area covering the modules, the new connections help to maintain high levels of electrical output while decreasing the risk of fire.
We've developed a new type of solar panel module that can be used in various environments and in a more efficient way by utilizing panels that are broken down into smaller pieces, instead of the existing large ones.
The research team also managed to raise the energy output by 60% by attaching a shape memory alloy to the solar panels. This allows the module to optimally change its configuration by itself following the motion of the sun like a sunflower.
We have replaced the material of combustible plastic with a fire-retardant material, which allows excellent electrical insulation and durability.
The result of this research was published as a cover study in a science journal for the energy sector by the World Society of Chemistry. The research team plans to utilize the new convertible solar panel modules into a wider range through further research. Cha Yun-kyung, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. We begin today in the UK, where thousands of protesters gathered in London on Wednesday for the second night of demonstrations following the deaths of 3 young girls in a knife attack at a dance class in Southport on Monday. Protesters clashed with police near Downing Street and threw flares and smoke canisters towards number 10 before riot police formed the barrier. Dozens were arrested at the scene. The second night of protests follows Tuesday's outbreak of violent demonstrations in Southport, a seaside town in the northwest where the killings took place. Tuesday's protest began as a peaceful vigil with over 1,000 people before a group began to gather near a mosque 2 streets away from the murder scene after hearing rumors that the 17-year-old suspect was an asylum seeker. The protesters, some believed to be far-right English Defence League supporters, attacked the mosque and police in riot gear with bricks from garden walls, bottles and fireworks, injuring 53 police officers and leaving the mosque damaged. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said they had insulted the community and would feel the full force of the law. Guinea's criminal court on Wednesday sentenced former junta leader Moussa Dadis Camara to 20 years in prison after finding him guilty of crimes against humanity for the deaths of at least 157 people and rape of dozens of women in the country's 2009 stadium massacre. The Guinea court convicted Camara and 7 other high-ranking officials after a prolonged trial. 4 others were acquitted. Now 60-year-old Camara seized power over the country in a military coup d'etat in December 2008, following the death of a longtime president, Lansana Conté. A year later, in September 2009, mass protests took place against his regime in Guinea's capital, Conakry, demanding Camara to step down. Witnesses from 2009 said that demonstrators gathered at the stadium to protest when Camara's soldiers opened fire, shooting, crushing and knifing some 160 people to death, while some of the women were gang raped by uniformed men over several days. A civil society activist, Mamadou Kali Diallo, said that the people of Guinea hope that this will be a good beginning for the fight against judicial impunity in governance in the Republic of Guinea. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro says that his Socialist Party is prepared to present all vote tallies from Sunday's election. Maduro has also said that he requested the country's top court to ensure all other political parties in Venezuela do the same. Maduro also claimed that the attorney's office should call all political parties and their candidates to testify in an investigation related to alleged election interference, such as cyber attacks, attacks on polling stations, and the offices of the National Electoral Council. Maduro's re-election has been under scrutiny for lack of transparency by the international community, including the majority of Latin American countries, to the extent of hindering their diplomatic ties. Nicolas Maduro, who has ruled Venezuela for a quarter century, claimed he'd won a third term with 51% of the vote on Sunday, while independent exit polls showed a big opposition win. Former BBC TV news presenter Hugh Edwards pleaded guilty on Wednesday to 3 counts of making indecent pictures of children. London's Westminster Magistrates Court was told that the 62-year-old Edwards, who had been BBC's highest-paid top news anchor for decades, was sent 377 sexual images, of which 41 were indecent images of children, through mobile messenger WhatsApp between December 2020 and August 2021 by an individual the police said was a convicted paedophile. Edwards is scheduled to be sentenced on September 16th. He resigned from the BBC in April. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Korea is enduring searing heat with heat wave warnings in most places. The government has raised the heat wave crisis alert level to its highest serious level as of yesterday. Meanwhile, Gangneung had the warmest temperatures of the season on Wednesday, and could see highs topping out at 36 degrees Celsius this afternoon. And today should be as bright as Wednesday, except in northern parts of the country with more cloud coverage and a chance of showers. 5 to 10 millimeters of rain is in the forecast, so have a small umbrella handy. Most of Korea is having a tropical night with overnight temperatures exceeding 25 degrees Celsius, but feeling closer to 30 degrees. It looks to be as hot as yesterday. Seoul gets up to 33 degrees, Gyeongju topping out at 37 degrees with very strong UV rays. Certain parts of the country could see on and off showers over the next 2 days, while sweltering heat continues day and night for the time being. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
Right, that ends Thursday's afternoon newscast. Thank you for watching, but do stay with us for our daily panel session.